So just look at this. You see all these holes all over the place, all this turf dug up. The raccoons have been back and have been wreaking havoc on all these areas every single night. I've been down here a couple times, caught them in the act. They didn't actually really seem to be very afraid of me, to be honest, but they are doing some pretty extensive damage again. This happened last year, way closer to the end of the season, but it started way earlier this year, here and here as well. So I obviously have my grub prevention down, but I also put down a grub killer about 2 weeks ago or so when I started to notice that the raccoons were back and probably digging for something. But that hasn't really made any sort of difference at this point. I can't see exactly what's going on in their head, whether they're just digging there just to see if they find something, or earthworms, or whatever else they're looking for. But as far as grubs go, I did everything that I could for that sort of issue, so not sure, but it's very, very annoying. And it's about 5:45 a.m. today. I never get up early because I'm not a morning person whatsoever, but I just couldn't sleep last night for some reason. And so I decided, hey, I got an application of equalizer down on the front yard last night, and I didn't really get that watered in, so I just decided to get up this morning, get the well turned on, and get the water going on that. Now, we are possibly supposed to get some rain today, which is, I know for most of you across the country, a word that we don't really understand anymore. But I'm gonna cross my fingers that we do that. So I have some stuff to get done today before we get to that point, some fertilizer to get down, some mowing to do, and I'll try to give you some updates on some plots and things along the way too. Good way to start out the morning with seeds, right? Fertilizer time again for the plots. So I actually found an old bag, the old stuff here from Equalizer. It's from last season. So I'm gonna do an app today while I have a chance this morning. Hopefully this can get watered in later. So let's get this going on my scale. Quick update on my sprayer too. The Sprayers Plus wand did not fit on here, so I know many of you said just take your other wand piece and put it onto here, but that one actually has a different thread size for this. What I did find though is I had a Milwaukee sprayer that's not working currently, and I just took the wand piece off of that sprayer, and that one does fit my T-Jet nozzles. So I was able to do that, and it seems to be working perfectly. I haven't seen any leaks or anything, and I did all of the front yard spraying yesterday. I'm trying again today with this. I don't really need this AI nozzle right now just because it's not windy out. I could go with just a regular fan tip, but I just have this in here right now, so that'll work too. I usually just keep this one in here and do a lot of my apps with that, but only use this now like 2 times, I think, but no issues with it so far. And now that I've figured out how I can get my nozzles in there, it should work well. So you may have noticed here in this plot in particular when I was spraying, there are some mushrooms in here, and probably at least once a season or so I hear from someone in email or comments or whatever, say I have mushrooms in my yard, how do I get rid of them? Is there something I can spray? And really this is just a sign that there's some organic matter here, and these conditions are just right for that to grow. So whether I maybe slightly overwatered this plot or something, or this one really only seems to be the one that shows up the most, so maybe there's something soil-wise going on here. But you don't really need to worry about this whatsoever. Just keep on mowing this, and as soon as it gets more dried out, you're not going to notice this long term or these mushrooms sticking around unless you had a spot that just consistently stays wet or it's very, very humid all the time or something. But nothing to be concerned about with that. Just something that I know many people are probably going to wonder what's going on with this. Another good example to show you right here, at least to my eyes with this lighting, is the example of nutrients here in the middle versus something that does not have enough nutrients on it. This is tall fescue, this whole area here, but I accidentally spilled a line of fertilizer going down this middle section here, and it actually looks really, really good and nice and green and growing well. And these areas I haven't really fertilized because all the stuff in between the plots here I just don't worry too much about. I'm just using it really as ground cover. This gives you a pretty good example here of why your nutrients are important and what they can really do for the turf. I've got some disease coming in on both sides of here, and this middle thing just looks so much better. Maybe in the future I should try to fertilize all of this, but it is definitely a lot of area to cover, a lot of product to use. Actually, exactly the same thing here too. You can see this line. So this side I've been using more as a check plot just to see what the differences are in my fertilizer program over here. So definitely there is quite a big difference. The annual ryegrass that I planted last season, it has not become annual because it has been back this season, and I just let it go out here because I also planted some wildflowers last year out here, and they're definitely starting to get much more mature now. We got some yarrow in here. I love these red flowers out here as well. So this area, I'm just letting it be what it is. I think it's a nice backdrop to the plots anyway, and that was really my plan, was wildflowers and stuff out here. Today's video is brought to you by Cujo Yardwear. I've been wearing the Cujo shoes in my yard for many, many seasons now and absolutely love them. Check out the link in the description and also the pinned comment to get 10% off your order. Thank you so much to Cujo for supporting this video and for supporting the lawn community. So before I forget, I wanted to show you this. Just look at how dark this ryegrass is. This is an area that I just broadcast seeded. I didn't do anything other than take my drag over it and drag it in. There's been quite a few times already where it looked very dry. It's getting to be on the pretty dry side right now because we haven't had rain for 2 weeks, but just look at how dark this is. No fertilizer on it. I've only mowed it probably 3 times or so. The rest of this is about to look like that later on. Well, I do my best here to stay up on this stuff as far as mowing goes, but it looks like these plots got a little longer in the last few days than I was anticipating that they were going to, but they're looking pretty good right now. I just need to keep up with my sort of spoon feeding here in the summer to maintain all this stuff and maintain what they're looking like as much as possible going through this next real difficult time for heat coming. It looks like a lot of 90s here, but it's about typical for getting closer to July. Both of the micro clover plots are doing fine. This one actually though is tall fescue and micro clover, and I haven't added any fertilizer to this at all this season, so the whole idea of it was to see what the clover could do to add some more nitrogen back into this whole thing. So far I really haven't needed any sort of fertilizer on it. I might do something in the fall though, just to beef things up before we get to winter and going into next season, but we'll see. So I did get that fence out, so a couple days ago I did get that fence out of the way. I didn't notice any problems with anything really eating all this clover like I anticipated it might, as far as deer or rabbits or anything else. So that thing is out of the way. I don't have to deal with it anymore, and that's nice. These plots have gotten so thick here that I'm not even really able to use this manual reel. I brought it out here again today just to see. I haven't been able to do it for the last couple mows. It just gets, I'll show you on the ryegrass. I mean, I really can't even get the reel to turn. It is so thick. It's not gonna work. And you can see these choppy lines that it makes because of the reel getting stuck in there. So, with these manual type reel mowers, you've really got to be on top of the grass. Otherwise, it gets thick like that and you're trying to cut it at 3/4 of an inch, it just doesn't want to do it. When I did this experiment with a manual reel back at my other house on the backyard on bluegrass is not a bunch type, so it does cut a little better than rye in terms of the manual reel. But even so, I had to be out there nearly every single day. Otherwise, it just was going to get out of hand, and we're at this exact stage right now where it just won't go through it. Probably bring a powered reel down here and get through this, but it is overgrown already. It's probably at least 1.5 inches, I'd say. So I'm just gonna be cutting it down. And that's not the greatest for reel mowers either. It would be better to use some suction from a rotary. So I've been setting this to the lowest setting on the Milwaukee and going over these. Unfortunately, they're not all leveled perfectly. So with a rotary mower, you will get some scalping on that when you're trying to cut so low. My long-term plan for these is to get these a lot more level, and then I should be able to, even if I needed to cut with a rotary on them, I should be able to get a lot tighter cut and not get some scalping. That would be the plan, but it's probably not going to happen until the fall time, so I kind of got to limp this along for the summer here, but that's where we're at. And I know I got a couple questions on the low cut fescue. No issues here whatsoever. I'm not down quite as low, but I was at 3/4 of an inch last year on a test spot at my other house. The only thing that I will say is they do feel a little bit different underfoot compared to bluegrass or rye with that finer blade, since this is just slightly thicker, and because it is a bunch type grass. When you walk on it, I guess the only thing I would say is it kind of feels a little bit spongy in a way. It is a different feel, but as far as can it survive it, I don't think there's going to be any issues. I haven't seen any issues with it whatsoever.
Someday you'll call this home.
One inch.
Okay.
.44.
Really?
Well, we got some much needed rainfall, and I know I feel bad saying that for a lot of you who are not getting any rain, but it has been very, very dry here too, and just a couple of times here where we've got some timely rain. And you can see the front yard behind me. No matter what, you can irrigate and irrigate, but a nice rainfall on everything. You can definitely tell all the plants enjoy it, but there's nothing like a good rainfall. So this behind me here for spring seeding, fantastic results. I'm definitely pleased with it. There's some work to do in the fall, which I'm really looking forward to already. We'll get to there and talk about it as we get to that point, but just some things here I want to show you, just a couple close-up things going on. Density-wise, I just wanted to kind of show you what's going on here. So what happened when I seeded was some of the seed underneath the blankets just got washed around, and because ryegrass is a clumping grass anyway, if you don't get really even coverage on everything, then it's going to start to grow those little clumps. They've obviously gotten way thicker, but you'll see something like this where there's like a little spot right here that didn't get any seed, and so then next to it you got a really good plant growing, but it starts to get a little clumpy through here. So texture wise, that's all what I've been dealing with now, is trying to get it so that I don't have so many stragglers here, and that when I roll it over with the mower. What I'm looking forward to in the fall is just doing a top dress on everything and trying to get some better even coverage with a light overseed on it too. But Again, this is really nitpicky for where we're at right now, considering how full this is for the spring seeding and how it's done overall. So pretty happy with it. Then I just wanted to show this spot as a good example of why seeding rates do matter and why you don't just throw down as much seed as you think you want to get a really full yard right away, because this is a real low spot. Bunch of seed washed into here and it had already germinated. Now I probably could have come in here and torn it out, but I just decided to leave it as a good example of what's going to happen. So, you know, you've got way too much grass in here fighting for all the nutrients that are in the ground right here. So one, it doesn't look very good color wise, and it's too shaggy and just you can't get a good cut on it. And then you start to see here that fungus has started to move in because of that overcrowding. Can't get the moisture out of there. So very, very important to understand your seeding rates and make sure to be close to those if you can. And when a spot like this happens, I mean, I could just take a power rake through here, tear out a bunch of it and let it breathe again. But it was a good example to show of what happens when it gets too thick. We got our planter boxes in, and Kelsey and I worked on getting some plants in here yesterday. So just got to fix a little bit of this lining here, but otherwise these are going to start to grow up soon. They're already growing pretty well. This one over here, these are just starting to bloom. This is one of my favorites. These are called gazanias, and they get some beautiful flowers on there. So a lot of 90s coming as far as temperatures that I'm seeing. So we're just gonna have to see what happens as we get into the heat of the summer here. Appreciate you watching today. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.